Hey, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for making it here. My name is Mr. Califer. I'm the STEAM specialist here at Mississippi Public Broadcasting. That means I get to take science, technology, engineering, arts, and math and put them together for one awesome adventure. You guys are right on time because the stuff we're going to talk about today is going to blow your mind, so I hope y'all are ready for it. So, the class that y'all are in today is called biology, and I wanted to ask y'all a question. Have you ever noticed how a lot of these science classes kind of sound a lot alike? You have biology, archaeology, geology, meteorology, paleontology. Why do they all sound alike? Well, these words kind of act like puzzle pieces where by themselves they don't really mean that much, but when you snap them on with another word, they make a bigger picture for you. So let's take biology as an example and kind of break that down a little bit. So in this word, bio means life and ology means the study of. So if you put them together, what do you get? Well, you get the study of life. Now, I know, I can already hear what some of y'all are saying. Biology, the study of life, isn't this class just a year long? I mean, haven't humans been studying biology for forever? I mean, what is life anyway? Is it my favorite board game? Is it the cereal you had for breakfast? Is it a magazine you read while you're waiting in the dentist's office? Well, fortunately, scientists have generated a list that we can use to determine if something is alive or not. And there's just 6 things you got to remember. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to play a little game with y'all, okay? So here's how it works. All right, so the game I have for y'all today is called It's Alive. Here's your job. I'm going to put a picture up here, and you have to determine whether it's alive or not. If you think it is alive, you should let your teacher know by yelling out in your best mad scientist voice, "It's alive!" If you don't think it's alive, just don't say anything, but that way you'll be able to hear what all your classmates in the room think with you. So let's get a zoom in, and we're going to go ahead and get this started. Here's our first one. What do y'all think? I mean, it's an animal, right? Animals are alive, so that one was pretty easy, but we're going to get harder as we go along. So here's your next one. All right, we're looking at rocks. What do y'all think? No, rocks aren't alive, scientists don't think. Let's look at a couple more. I mean, we're looking at trees here. Trees are plants. Plants are alive, right? Yeah, scientists think plants are alive. I got a couple more for y'all. That one's kind of weird. Batteries. I mean, you can have a dead battery, right? No, scientists don't think that batteries are alive, and saying a battery is dead is kind of just a figure of speech. All right, here's another one. What are we looking at here? So this is mold growing on a petri dish, and although it's really hard to see sometimes, scientists think that mold is alive. We got these seashells. The shells really aren't alive. We would say that they're organic. But if you look really closely, you'll see that there's actually a little animal inside one of those seashells. And this is called a mollusk. And like we said earlier, animals are alive, so this one is alive. Okay, clouds. I mean, they're mostly made out of water like you and me. They move around, they grow bigger. But no, scientists don't think that clouds are alive. How about this next one? I mean, what are we even looking at here, right? So this is petrified wood. This used to be a tree, but then when it died, all of these minerals started to seep into its cells. And so at this point, there is no living tissue here anymore. This is actually just a rock. And if you didn't know, petrified wood is actually the state stone of Mississippi, although it's kind of more of a fossil than a stone. All right, I got one more for y'all, and I think this one's the trickiest. Okay, we have fire. Fire consumes oxygen, and you got to put fuel on it to keep it alive. If you throw water on it, it's going to die. But no, scientists don't think that fire is technically considered a living thing. So some of those might have been trickier than you thought, but I've got a list I'm going to show you here, and this is 6 characteristics that all living things share. So let's go ahead and hop into this. This is something you can use to determine if something is alive when you're doing this in the future, okay? So let's go ahead and hop into it. So these are 6 characteristics of living things. All living things, whatever you can think of, if it's alive, it has all 6 of these things. And if it's missing any of them, even one, scientists would not consider that thing as being alive. So the first one I wanted to talk about is that all living things are made up of cells. We're going to talk about cells a lot in this unit. But just to get us started today, I want to point out to y'all that cells are the building blocks of living things. If it's not made out of cells, it's not considered alive. You might not really know what cells are right now, but there's a couple in this picture that you are probably aware of. So take a close look at that. I'll give you a hint. These are cells that you can find in your blood. What type of cells would these be? Well, one of these is a red blood cell, and the one there in the back that looks a little fuzzy is called a white blood cell. So y'all probably already know a little bit about cells. All right, number two, the second characteristics that all living things have in common is that they all have organization. And I don't mean the folders and binders in your backpacks either. When I say have organization, what I mean is that as you grow larger and larger, your body has to arrange your body in a certain way. And we say that that's having organization. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. The third thing that all living things have in common is that they use energy. Okay, you and I use energy. Where's that energy coming from? Where the food that you eat and the air that you breathe, your cells takes those ingredients and changes them up and makes it into energy that you and I can use. Plants use energy too, but they kind of get it in a little bit of a different way, and we'll talk about that later in this class too. Okay, so those are three things that all living things have in common. I'm going to show you three more right now. Okay, so number four, all living organisms maintain homeostasis. What does that mean? Well, we have to keep your internal environment in a certain range, or your body's not going to work the right way. So in that picture, there's a really good example. If you're running around and you're getting hot, what's something that your body's going to do to try to cool you off? Well, you're going to start to sweat, right? And when you sweat, that helps cool you off. We're trying to keep that internal environment within a certain range, or your body's not going to work the right way, okay? Another thing that all living organisms share, number five, is that they all grow. When you were first made in your mother's womb, when your dad and mom first came together, that formed a zygote. And at that point, you were just one cell large. But now, most humans have up to 37 trillion cells in their body. So we've been growing a lot ever since we were born. Okay? And the last thing that all living organisms share is that they all reproduce. Okay? We have to make offspring to keep that species alive in the next generation. So if an object is not doing one of these six things, scientists would not consider them as being a living thing, okay? Let's get into a little bit more detail on one of these. So the first point I told you all about is that all things are made up of cells. Let's get into that a little bit more. So this brings us to something super important in biology. It's called the cell theory, okay? And there's three parts of the cell theory. Number one, every living thing is made up of one or more cells. That's right, some organisms can only be one cell large. A lot of bacteria are only one cell, and we would call that being unicellular. Okay, that prefix uni, U-N-I. Think of like a unicycle, right? A unicycle is like a bicycle with one wheel. Well, the same way that a unicycle only has one wheel, a unicellular organism is only made up of one cell. Okay, number two, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function for life. Okay, when it comes to whether something is alive or not, you can't go any smaller than a cell and still be alive. A cell is the smallest thing that does all six of those characteristics, okay, and everything is made up of cells. Number three, all cells arise from pre-existing cells. That one's a little counterintuitive. Think about that one for a second. All cells arise from pre-existing cells. We kind of get put in this chicken or the egg thing, don't we, where if all cells come from pre-existing cells, where'd the first cell come from? That's a question that scientists are still trying to answer. And I bet some of the people in this room right now are going to be the people that figure that out for us, okay? So let's keep it going. I wanted to talk about something a little bit different, not cells so much, but we're going to dive into the levels of organization. And this picture here is going to show us what's going on in a little bit more detail. So what I wanted to do, as you're filling in your notes, I'm going to start from the smallest level of organization and kind of work our way up into the largest level, and then I've got a little game to go along with it. So make sure you're paying attention, because I know you want to show your classmates how smart you are, okay? So the smallest level of organization that we're going to talk about in this class is called an atom. What is an atom? Well, pick anything on the periodic table. You could talk about gold or oxygen or hydrogen. If you get to the smallest level of matter that can go, that's called an atom, okay? And this particular picture, that little blue circle that we're looking at is actually a hydrogen atom, okay? So let's go up to our next level of organization. This is called a molecule, and you actually know what molecule is on the board right now. So take a second and think about it. What is the chemical equation for water? Think about water. What is it? It's H2O, right? Well, hydrogen and oxygen are both atoms. And so when you get a couple of atoms and you put them together, you make something called a molecule. So water is a type of molecule. It's two hydrogens and an oxygen all fused together. Take a close look at that water molecule for me. You'll see that it kind of looks like a Mickey Mouse hat. Anytime you see a Mickey Mouse hat looking thing, you're probably looking at water, and that's how I knew that that one was water. Okay, our next level up, this is called a macromolecule. Well, a macromolecule is really just a big molecule. If you know anything about prefixes, macro is kind of the opposite of micro. Micro means small, macro means big. So where a molecule might be 3 to 5 atoms all fused together, a macromolecule can be hundreds of atoms put together. So what's a large molecule? It's a macromolecule. Okay? Going up to our next level of organization, we're going to talk about something called an organelle. What's an organelle? Well, it kind of sounds like the word organ, right? That suffix, E-L-L-E, means small. So an organelle is kind of like a small organ. Instead of being in your body, though, organelles are inside of cells, and they have a specific job to play just like the organs in your body have. Okay? So let's get a couple of organelles together, put them all in the same place. That's going to make something called a cell. We've kind of talked about cells just a little bit. Remember, they are the basic unit of structure and function for life. So at this point, when we get to the cell, everything above this is going to be considered alive, and everything below this is not going to be considered alive. Okay? Cells don't like working by themselves, though. Cells like to work in a team. So when we get similar cells coming together to do a similar function, we make something called a tissue. And that's our next level of organization, is called a tissue. Okay? A really good example of a tissue is like muscle. Muscle is a tissue in your body, and we're all familiar with what muscle is. Okay? After tissue, we're going to go up to our next level of organization. And take a close look at that organ right there in the middle. Anyone know what organ we're talking about there? That's the stomach, that's right. And your stomach is an organ, and it's made up of a couple of different tissue types. On the outside of the stomach is muscle, and on the inside of the stomach is a type of tissue called glandular epithelial tissue. It likes to secrete different types of secretion. So it's going to secrete hydrochloric acid and pepsin, and that's going to help you break down the food in your stomach. Okay? So we've got the stomach. We're going to team it up with a couple of different organs, and we're going to make our next level of organization called an organ system. So what organ system do you think your stomach would be a part of? I mean, it helps you digest food, right? And so what we're looking at in that picture, that is your digestive system. It's a bunch of different organs working together to digest your food. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take your digestive system, we're going to take your nervous system, your muscular system, skeletal system, all of these different systems, we're going to put them together. That's going to make our next level of organization called an organism. What's an organism? You're an organism. I'm an organism. Your cat or dog at home are organisms. An organism is a living thing. So plants can be organisms. A fungus can be organism. If it's an organism, it's alive. Okay? So I've got a little game I want to play. What I need y'all to do is, teacher, if you could go ahead and pass out those stack of cups to all of your students. You can pause the video for a second and then go ahead and get those passed out for the students, and we're going to run through this little game, okay? All right, so everybody, thanks for coming back. Here's what I want you to do to get started with. Take your cups, and we're going to spread them out across your desk, okay? Kind of like how I'm doing. Just kind of put them anywhere right now. That's fine. You can mix them up as you go. Okay, so we're kind of putting those cups all over the place. And here's what we're going to do, just like how I ran through those levels of organization from smallest to biggest. You've got these cups, and I want to do the same thing with these. We're going to put these cups in order from smallest to biggest, just like how I did it on the board up there. So looking at these cups, let's take a second. Does anyone remember what is the smallest level of organization that we've talked about in this class? You might remember that it's the atom. So find your atom cup and we're going to put that out in front as our starting point, okay? So hydrogen and oxygen, anything on the periodic table is an atom. Okay, let's take a couple of atoms and fuse them together. What does that make? Well, that's going to make a molecule, right? So find your molecule cup, and we're going to put that up there on the next one. Okay, so here's molecule. If I get 2 hydrogens and an oxygen together, boom, I make water, and that's a molecule, okay? So our next level of organization is kind of like a molecule, it's just a lot bigger. So what's a big molecule called? You might remember that the prefix macro means large. So macromolecule is going to be our next level. That one was up in the front, easy to find for me. So macromolecule is our next level. Okay, anyone remember what the next level of organization is? Take a second to look around. You might remember that it's an organelle. An organelle is just a little organ. Instead of being in your body, they're inside of cells. Okay, which brings us to our next level of organization. It's the cell. Remember, the cell is the basic unit of structure and function for living things, okay? So, cell. Okay, we're going to take a couple of cells, we're going to put them on a team. Similar cells doing a similar job. What does that make? A team of cells is called a tissue. That's going to be our next level of organization. Muscle is a tissue. Actually, bone is a type of tissue as well. Okay, so now we're going to put a couple of tissues, we're going to make a team out of them, they're going to try to get a goal completed. What's that called? That's an organ. Your stomach, your brain, your skin are all organs in your body, okay? All right, well, if we take a couple of organs and put them together on a team, they're working together to try to get a job done. What's that called? That's called an organ system. So I'm going to take that one and I'm going to stack that on top, okay? And then the last one, if we take several organ systems and put them inside of you and make them work together, that's going to make something called an organism. You and I are both organisms, and that's our top layer of levels of organization. So we're not done yet with these cups. I ran through them one time with y'all, but I want to see who's really been paying attention. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Go ahead and take those cups and spread them back out for me, okay? Take your tower down and kind of spread them out all over the room. You see how I'm kind of spreading them out? Okay? Now I want you to take them and kind of shuffle them up a little bit. Okay? Kind of do them how I'm doing this here. Okay? Here's what we're going to do. After everybody's taken a second to shuffle them up, I'm going to count down, and when I say go, I want you to try to put them in that correct order from smallest to biggest like we just did, okay? So make sure you're shuffling them up really good. And whenever everybody's ready, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, everybody, thank you so much for following along with me today. I had a great time talking about biology with all of you. Your teacher has some other assignments for y'all to work on, so make sure you give it your best effort, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.